What's up, everybody? The Doctor is in. Michael Prada here once again with another edition of The Clinic. The last time we were here was for League of Legends patch 9.9, and today we're right back into it with League of Legends patch 9.11. I know I skipped one, but because of my schedule that week, it was really weird for me to get one out in a reasonable time, and by the time I could record it, it was like basically a week later. So I didn't really see the point in doing one for 9.9. But I do like doing these patch updates because it is a different break from a lot of the FGC content I've been doing. And it kind of helps me talk out some of the things for when I'm doing League of Legends commentary, which I do still do. It's just over on the EGN network / Risen network. Shout out to those guys who I love working with. But for now, I mean, patch 9.11, here we are. Things are just running right through. In fact, we already have a mid-patch update. The patch came out yesterday. Changes already in today. Karthus change, 0.65 to 0.75 ability power ratio on the ultimate there. Pretty scary. I think Karthus does a lot of damage late game as is. He just does 0.10% more now. Master Yi, 15% attack damage per additional strike on 225 per additional strike. So they upped his 1v1 potential on the alpha strike damage because you now get that much more damage in a solo target. They must not have felt he was doing so hot this one. I disagree. Vayne, obviously a bug fix. Her ultimate was, instead of tripling her movement speed, taking it away, which really hinders her teamfight / skirmish ability on that. So really glad that got fixed up. Little Dreamin' Tristana came out today. Oh, okay. That's kind of cool. Another one of those community chosen skins where everybody voted, and that's what we picked. So now into the actual patch notes, the actual changes to champions. Akali, passive energy refunded, decreased late. Damage ratio increased on her passive. So instead of getting 10, 20, 30, she now gets 10, 5, 20. Pretty impactful. 200 total energy, losing 10 of it back kind of helps. Damage ratio, yeah, she does a lot of damage, so they drop it by 0.6 AD and 0.5 ability power. So now that Hextech Gunblade build, or item, excuse me, because the rest of the build after that's full AP, you're getting, double whammied on that particular item. Still going to get picked up just because of how much utility it gives you and combines well with the kit. So not too much of a change there, just tuning her down a little bit. Amumu, passive bonus true damage decreased from 13 to 10. Probably because it's one of the stronger parts of his damage output. His utility is still there, but I mean, full AP damage Amumu really hurts. And so they just kind of drop that down a little bit. Echo, basic attacking after E no longer delayed due to animation. It says small quality of life, but that's actually pretty huge. How many times have you phase dived in only to have it a split second later lose vision in like a bush or fog of war or something that you really felt should have connected, that you really should have followed them on. Now, because you get that split second earlier on the dash there, you now have that situation happening less. So really nice there, because it's going to smooth out the way his kit flows together. Yeah, it might take some getting used to defensively, like on the opposite end, because now he's going to be getting onto you a little bit quicker. But definitely a great change for Echo. Really fun champion there, so I'm glad that they're giving him some attention. Galio, W base damage decreased, damage ratio increased, E damage decreased. Alright, so Justice Punch hurt early, hurts less early now. Still the same at 240 though, so nothing really going to change there. Let's see. So they're changing this. Well, they say they're changing it so he's no longer going to be as good as a support as a laner. Makes sense. I mean, he's pretty strong in the support role, although we haven't really been seeing too much of it as of late. We did see a little bit, but I mean, LCS is literally this weekend, so we didn't really get the chance to see it everywhere. Um, is he gonna be picked up more in lane matchups? I don't think so. Obviously, he was strongest when he was AP in the mid lane, um, but they didn't really maximum damage wise. Yeah, it's kind of nice because it's a point 0.3, but for every what is it? My math is freaking terrible. It's like for every 10 ability power, you get 3 damage. I think that's how that works. So, I mean, it's or 3 additional damage, not 3 damage total, obviously, because it becomes an almost 1-to-1 ratio now. Might be crazy impactful. I just don't think we're going to be seeing him in a solo lane just yet. I think there's too much focus on bruisers in the top and support / mages in the mid lane. Overall, probably good changes for him though. Maybe we'll see him in the jungle, actually. I know it's a bit more of a gold dependent item builds we're going to be seeing out of it now because he needs to get that ability power. But I mean, he might be in that nice little in-between area now where he can actually jungle efficiently and still have some really nice gank potential. Gragas, the problem child of League of Legends, gets buffed. That's silly. Base health, health growth, and attack damage all increased. So now he's tankier, and he does a bit more damage. Probably be seeing more of him now. He does win the Sejuani matchup, and then, goes from there. So we'll probably, Gragas is good. We'll see him in a lot of solo queue, and we'll probably see him in competitive. Jenna. Let's see. W cooldown now scales. Base damage decreased late. E cooldown now decreases. Oh, when Jenna CCs enemies? That's interesting. Cooldown decreased early, increased late. And you get a bigger shield. Okay. That's interesting. So, goes down 2 seconds. That's pretty good. With some CDR now, it'll be up pretty much all the time. Base damage. So early on in lane, you're still going to get hurt by it a little bit. But come mid-late game, you're really not going to be bothered by it too much, which is nice. And then each ability that slows or knocks back an enemy champion reduces cooldown by 20%. So earlier, you'll be pretty safe if you just have like a super duper passive Janna that doesn't actually do anything, except throw a shield on you because it'll be up 2 seconds quicker. But if you have a very aggressive Janna, then this is actually going to help out a lot. Well, this part's going to help out a lot. If you have the Janna that's always walking up and Zephyring and tornadoing and just landing all of her abilities, then I feel like this is going to be up like 100% uptime. You're just always going to be able to get shielded if they, aggress or if you get a gank in. Especially early on. Once it gets down to about 12 seconds and you have like 40-45% CDR, this should be up really often, and you'll be able to get off, a bunch of them in team fights. So Jenna's weird because I feel like she really warps the bot lane meta, because if she's really good, then as long as you don't get like Leonid, and even if you do get Leonid, because Jenna has the tools there, it can be really difficult, to aggress effectively onto Jenna. So if we start seeing a lot of her, I would expect to see some portion of this nerfed. But we'll just have to see. Let's see. So Jace just straight up nerfed. Pretty good. His Q really hurt a lot, so they're bringing it back down to 1% bonus attack damage versus 1.2, and dropping it by 30% damage. So that's pretty impactful. That's actually a lot of damage he's losing late game, which is, his thing is just poke until you die. So that's no longer a thing. That's not no longer a thing. It's less of a thing. This might equate to like 50 damage less on a shock blast late game. So you know, in those rare scenarios where you lose the 1v1 and you're trying to run away, it's not going to make a difference. But if you're trying to survive a siege with like an Ocean Drake on your side, it's gonna potentially matter a lot. R damage ratio decreased. Okay, so this goes back up to what we saw earlier in the mid patch. They just gave him his ratio back. Still 50 less damage, but I mean, if you're running Dark Harvest, you can get that back pretty quick. Especially once you hit 6 and you can just ult off every, you know, skirmish. You start stacking up stills pretty quick, and this 50 damage won't matter for very long. Bonus attack speed at level 1 removed. Q isolated damage decreased. Oh, so they already just reverted the nerf. Okay, so they nerfed him and then gave it right back, but that's fine. He doesn't have 8% attack speed, so his level 1 clear is a bit slower. So that's nice. We always like to see Master Yi nerfs. We don't like buffs there. Remus, this poor little turtle boy. Passive basic attack damage flattened and R damage decreased. I think that's interesting because I never really saw this as an issue. Like, yeah, it can hurt towers too, but it wasn't like people were building like AP Ramus and, you know, suiciding into towers with it because it was so strong. No, it just kind of was a thing. But I mean, I guess it kind of hurt. I mean, 120 damage per tick adds up. Basic attack damage 8 to 20, 10 at all levels. So they took a bit of scaling out there. What do they say? We're pulling power specifically out of his ult and passive so he can still hurt enemies via Powerball. So that doesn't make any sense because they're just nerfing him. Like, changing these doesn't, you know, make these suddenly better. Like, they still do exactly what they did. He just has less overall. And for a champion that wasn't crazy strong, it's a little sad to see. I would have preferred to see, like, an armor buff or something. Not necessarily damage buff, because, again, he's a tank. But, or maybe, like, some way for him to better use MR. Because, I mean, you really only pick Ramus when the enemy team has, like, Yasuo, Tryndamere, and, like, triple quad AD. Like, you would never pick him into, like, an actually balanced, you know, team comp. There's better tanks for that. Warwick, just flat out buffing his healing after level 1. That's pretty crazy. 90% of damage dealt. That's crazy. Like, that's a 20% boost. We might actually start seeing Warwick, interestingly enough. You know, with Righteous Glory still in the game and stuff like that, he's going to have a lot easier time surviving once he goes in. You know, his Q's up fairly often. He builds CDR into his tanky items. So, I mean, he'll have this up a lot. Ooh, you could probably run a Spirit Sojin build. That'd be a little cheeky. You know, Righteous Glory, Spirit Sojin. You just run at him, ult the AD carry, and then just spam Q. That'd be interesting. Maybe that'd be like a top lane Warwick thought process, though. Which would actually be better because you would be maxing Q in the top lane more often than in the jungle anyway. So that'd be interesting to see. I'd like to try that at least. So quality of life. Man, I can't talk today. Changes for Yuumi. Range indicator adjusted. W now gives assists. And E movement speed decay flattened and a lot of bug fixes. Fixed a bug where her minimap icon would break. Missing stats fixed. Not sending area. Huh, that's an interesting one. Would gain approach velocity whenever Yuumi was attached. That sounds like it'd be a useful one. Huh. This would just break a Poppy's ult? That's interesting. So I guess if she used her ultimate or her Q, it would just break Poppy ult. That's kind of interesting. range indicator is now much brighter. I never really thought it was hard to see. Like I don't know. It's probably just a general change. Like it definitely wasn't super difficult to see, but I could understand someone missing it, like in a team fight or something. You and me now finally giving assists. That's good. And flattened. They don't say what they mean by that, but they attach it to her ability power. I don't know. Zac. Q slow decreased. Cooldown passive decreased late. W max damage now scales with AP. Ooh, that's interesting. And the most important one, his ultimate's reverted back to pre-patch 7.9. So that's pretty crazy. Obviously Zac used to have an old ultimate called Let's Bounce where he would bounce. He would bounce 3 times, knock people up, and do damage, and was able to cast this W the whole time. Obviously in 7.9 they changed it to what it is now, where you flatten yourself out and bring people back. Almost an objectively worse ultimate. He could use it in a lot more situations to escape, but we never really saw him too much with the new ultimate. It just wasn't very practical. Best case scenario, it's a better ultimate. 90% scenario, it's the worst ultimate because you don't get that guaranteed knockup. And there's a lot of ways to dodge out of it, especially with how much movement is in the game now. Like any type of dash, any type of blink, any type of flash, like all of those simply just made the ultimate, useless. But buff onto the cooldown of stretching strikes is pretty cool. It's mostly a late game buff, dropping it by 2 seconds, so he'll be able to punch people more, which is always nice. It'll be really nice in a late game team fight when you're really just trying to keep people CC'd, and it looks like that's what they're trying to do, is make him more of a CC jungle bot, which is good because it was his thing. But they kind of took a little bit away. It doesn't slow as much, but the important part is the pullback. So the slow's not that important. Obviously, it helps keep them in range, but you're 100% more concerned with getting the suction there. They're adding a damage ratio to his ultimate. You don't build too much AP, but for trolling in an Aram, this is nice. 2% max per 100. Getting an 8% burst W every couple seconds, that could be fun to try out in Aram. Let's Bounce. Not squishy, no longer squishes himself down, no longer knocks back enemies. When quickly releasing R, no longer scoops up. Okay. Ooh, Flubber. Now bounces 4 times. Okay, so they upped it from 3. And each bounce does up to 280 damage. That's crazy. 50% magic damage and do not knock up. Okay. So that's still pretty crazy. The initial one doing 280 damage flat and then 140 afterwards per bounce. If you don't flash out afterwards and you get hit with all 4, that is 280, 280s, 560 plus 140s, 700 damage. Like, that kills your AD carry, probably, because he's spamming W down the whole time. He gains ramping movement speed. That's pretty cool. So he gets faster and faster every time. So even if you flash after the first bounce, he still probably gets you, honestly. That's pretty cool. I like that change overall for Zac. We were seeing him a little bit competitively before. And I think this is going to be a nice swap to maybe see him a bit more. I honestly can't remember how he does into like Sidwani, who's pretty strong. But I think now that he has an actual team fight ultimate again, I definitely think we're going to be seeing more of him. And I don't think there's anything else in these patch notes. Challenger, not important. Rainbow Fluffed. We're extending the Rainbow Fluffed icons availability. Okay. And then bug fixes. Whirling Death now properly decreases. Titanic Hydra on hit no longer able to longer hit towers. Didn't know that was a thing. Airy no longer causing Death Dance to bleed. Pretty cool. Shaco's ultimate no longer deals 60% instead of 70%. Okay, that's a big buff. That's yikers. Just in time for his new skin. Lysandra passive can no longer take Eye of the Herald. Is that a good thing? I don't know what that means. I never saw that bug, so I mean, does that mean it... I assume this means it just eats it, right? Because it would go into the clone's item pouch, but then the clone would disappear, and so would the item pouch. I assume that's what it means, because I can't imagine it means it would give it to the player whose clone it stole, because that would just be absolutely bonkers broken. Guardian's tooltip now properly indicates an ability ratio of... instead of... Oh, I see. Okay. And then Diana Q, Moonlight Particles no longer briefly reappear. Alright, cool. Got some chromas, and that's about it. So that's it for patch 9.11. Overall, a pretty small patch. Nothing too crazy bonkers outside of obviously the revert on Zac, which is so long ago, it feels. Overall, I think the only changes that really, like, meta change that we're going to see champions are Zac, Janna, and I don't know, maybe Galio. Maybe we'll start seeing Galio, like I said, in the jungle. But for now, guys, that's it for me. Once again, I'm Michael Dr. Pirani. Thank you for who tuned in today. If you like the content, whether it's the League of Legends content or any of the FGC commentary or anything I do on that side of the map, definitely hit that subscribe button down below. And once again, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.